Okay, so speak now or forever hold your peace.
Bippity boppity boop.
Ba 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 ba.
Titty sprinkles.
What the fuck? Okay, that is the new member of Applebottom's brothel.
Oh,
Perfect. Now somebody has to come up with Titty Sprinkles' design, because that name is too good to waste.
I feel like that should be a cousin of Pinkie Pie's.
Yeah, go on then, narrator. You've got to design Titty Sprinkles now.
Don't forget the cutie mark.
Yep.
I suddenly regret having this being recorded.
Is Titty Sprinkles male or female? Because that will very much change that cutie mark.
It's got to be female.
Yeah, because male is not so nice.
That is that enough sample audio for your
That
recording?
is, and I am going to hold on to this. I'm not going to discard it like I thought I was. This is going in the bloopers.
Is it?
No. Why
She'll
would you
use
do
it.
that?
She'll use it.
Yeah.
Titty sprinkles.
I mean, to be fair, I say I use everything and then discarded a whole podcast, so clearly I'm a liar.
Extenuating circumstances.
True. So is this. We're using Titty Sprinkles.
Oh, for God's sake.
Hello and welcome to Them's Writin Words, a podcast discussing selected fanfictions from the world of pastel horse literature. My name is Scribbler, and I will be your moderator today. Joining me for this discussion, we have Clever Hooves.
Titty sprinkles.
Why?
I'm definitely using that extract before
No.
this. Neighrator Pony.
Hi.
Midnight 29.
Hello.
And Nomad Flicker.
Heya.
Today we're looking at the fanfic The Incredibly Dense Mind of Rainbow Dash by Chengar Qordath, as chosen by Neighrator Pony. The synopsis reads,
Rainbow Dash struggles to figure out why Pinkie Pie keeps acting weird and seems so happy about spending Hearts and Hooves Day. Hearts and Hooves with hanging out with her. Did you paste that
I
incorrectly?
copy and
or is
pasted that and it looks like it was a typo.
How
Wow.
interesting. This is also my first time
13-year-old
noticing.
typo.
Wow.
To be fair,
In the
I went for the
description.
first 7 years of my channel until Xena told me that I'd misspelled my own name. And for 7 years I'd been Skibbler because I'd forgotten the R.
Oh.
Ouch.
Anyway, where is I? And seems so happy about spending Hearts and Hooves with hanging out with her, while also puzzling over the fact that Cloud Kicker and Blossomforth seem to be going out of their way to help the two of them enjoy the day.
Thank you. The story was published between the 27th of June 2012 and the 5th of July 2013, which is odd because it's technically the same story both times, but we'll get into that. But it clocks in at 14,104 words. So the first bit of this podcast is going to be spoiler-free, just in case you want to go and read this for yourself. We will indicate when we're getting into spoiler territory. So here we go. First of all, tags. Do we believe they are accurate? The tags are romance and comedy. Narrator?
There's definitely nothing else there, so yes, I would say they're accurate.
I mean, okay. Clever?
Those tags are accurate. I think the only question remains is, are there others? And I don't know if there are. I kind of agree with Neighrator. I don't think there is anything else. Maybe
Is
slice,
facepalm a tag?
I
maybe
think that
slice
comes
of
under
life.
random comedy. Yeah, I was thinking slice of life.
Maybe slice of life. Yeah.
Midnight, what do you reckon?
I agree. Maybe you could put slice of life in, but otherwise, it's all good. I think. Yeah.
And Nomad Flicker?
Yeah, same thing. Comedy and shoot. What was the other one? Already forgot. Oh my god. I'm so bad at this ads.
Romance.
Yeah, romance and comedy. There's not much. Slice of life, maybe as well.
I would say there are a lot of things romance. They are inadvertently slice of life as well, unless you're going for some kind of romantic drama like Green. I think that it's kind of a bit of a given when you've got a soft and fluffy thing like this that you're going to veer into slice of life territory. And it does depend on how much you enjoy slice of life, whether or not you're going to enjoy something like this. So, MP, you're going to give us a brief, spoiler-free description of the story. We'll give our overall opinions of it without going into spoilers, and then we'll go into spoiler territory. Okay? Okay, there you go.
Pinkie Pie has a crush on Rainbow Dash, and Rainbow Dash is oblivious. Blossomforth and Cloud Kicker try to get them together, with humorous consequences.
Given that you are the fic picker, sort of, because you picked this from a list of things that I gave you.
Yeah.
I was like, these, just pick these from the list. And you picked this one, which I'm not entirely sure that you didn't pick it because it was the last one I gave you. What do you think of this story?
This story is very interesting. We'll get into it, but this story is the first in the Winningverse series, which is culturally significant in the Brony fandom, and it all started off with this thing, which I feel like is very random, because this is a rather inauspicious beginning to such a sprawling fanfiction universe.
Yeah, we are going to get into, in the spoiler territory, we are going to get into the fact that this did start the Winningverse and what the Winningverse is, because I get the feeling it's not as significant in 2025 fandom as it was in those early days, because it really was in those early days. And it's kind of curious to me that it's not anymore, that it hasn't maintained its cultural hold the way that something like Rainbow Factory or Cupcakes has. So we'll get into that.
I was going to say, I have no idea about the Winningverse and would love to know more about it. So thank you for letting me know that that was going to happen.
Yeah, it's one of those that if I hadn't been in the early part of the fandom, this might have completely passed me by, but I was there and I remember how popular this was. Like, we'll get into that. We'll get into that. On that note, Clever, what's your general opinion of this story?
I mean, it's okay. Yeah, it's not like horribly written. I read it and I was kind of underwhelmed. I guess I get the premise. I mean, it delivers on everything it says it's going to deliver, and I don't know. I had hoped for more, I guess. I don't mean to like slam the author. I think that the author did all right with it. I just I don't want to like give away spoilery things, so I'm just giving you a real surface like gut reaction. I kind of read it and I thought, oh, I was expecting a little something more, but it does deliver on everything it says it's going to deliver.
Gotta admit, I agree with you on that. That I left this thing in my read it later pile for literally years. And given how important Winningverse was in early fandom, I was expecting more from this one, which perhaps I shouldn't, because it's a romantic comedy. Nomad, what do you think?
I'm usually more of a horror person, so that was very far away from my usual waters. Yeah, as Clever and Neighrator said, you have the premise, and it follows it to the T. So it's okay. Not my thing whatsoever, but it's fine.
Midnight, what do you think?
Facepalm.
You also saw the characters.
It was okay. I mean, I enjoyed it, but also wanted to strangle something.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Good if you don't want to think too hard.
Yeah. My general opinion is that it's very early fandom. It's light, it's fluffy, it's very contrived, it's very early fandom, and your mileage may vary on how much you enjoy that. So we're now into spoiler territory. Neighrator, can we have a full plot summary, please? Thank you.
Sure. Rainbow Dash dislikes Hearts and Hooves Day because everyone wants the weather to be just so for their most romantic day of the year. In addition, most of the weather team is given the day off to spend with their significant others, leaving the few ponies who are unattached to pick up the slack. Among the small core of currently single ponies is Rainbow Dash herself, Blossomforth, whose date fell through, and Cloud Kicker, who prefers lots of casual sex to committed relationships. When Blossomforth and Cloud Kicker hear Rainbow Dash lamenting that she hasn't gotten a chance to go to Sugar Cube Corner for a meal yet today due to the increased workload, they volunteer to cover for Rainbow Dash. Because it is apparent to literally everyone except Rainbow Dash that Pinkie Pie has a crush on her. Upon arriving at Sugar Cube Corner, Pinkie Pie treats Rainbow Dash with a comically oversized cupcake and asks if Rainbow Dash wants to spend Hearts and Hooves Day together. The cupcake will be the first in a series of increasingly blatant romantic advances made by Pinkie Pie towards Rainbow Dash, to which Rainbow Dash remains infuriatingly oblivious. With humorous consequences. Blossomforth and Cloud Kicker continue to meddle from the sidelines, trying to get the two together, with humorous consequences. The story concludes rather suddenly when Pinkie Pie finally gives up and kisses Rainbow Dash. This story is the first in the Winningverse cinematic universe, which revolves around Cloud Kicker. The story immediately following this one is considered the central of the series, called The Life and Times of a Winning Pony, which is 361,000 words and has inspired nearly 200 spin-off and AU fics in the Life and Times of a Winning Pony group on fanfiction.
Including 6 different alternate universes.
6.
Wow. You know what? Wow.
Right?
Remember when
That's
I said
a
that
lot.
this fic was culturally significant? Too early fandom. Yeah, this, when I said Winningverse was very important to early fandom, this story gave birth to a lot of what became just the accepted fan and personalities of background ponies, and gave like a whole wealth of stuff that just got absorbed and folded into generally accepted canon facts, or fanon facts, I should say. But they all came from this universe, and it's really bizarre in retrospect that it all started with this really random Pinkie Dash story.
So remember that, authors. You can start something amazing, even if it starts off less than amazing.
I mean, the
like
entirety
the
of
real-
Aprilverse started with a silly comic dub.
I feel like the real story of this story is that is what's not here. is what we're not, is what everything except this story.
Well, this sort of comes back to what I said earlier about that this story was published between 2012 and 2013, but is technically the same story. What I meant by that was the original version of this story was published in June 2012. And Winningverse, the sequel spin-off, which is about Cloud Kicker, one of the background characters in this story, started in September of that year and got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. The author then went back in 2013 when they'd established a lot of their own fanon and their own internal universe logic and rewrote Incredible Dense Mind of Rainbow Dash to better reflect some of the stuff that was in the Winning Pony. And that increased the word count quite a bit. They've included the original story as well. And from what I can tell, the only real difference between them is some spelling, punctuation, and grammar fixes, and just references to things that happen in Winningverse, like the fact that Rainbow Dash, Cloud Kicker, and Derpy knew each other at flight camp, and that Derpy met Cloud Kicker when she ploughed into her while running for the muffin table. Little side flings like that that do hint at a wider narrative, that this story is posed like it's in media res, that these characters have known each other, this takes place in a wider canon. We're clearly setting up a bunch of other spin-offs. There's Rarer Jack, there's Cloud Kicker / Blossomforth. There's all sorts of other things in the background that are presumably elaborated on in this other story, and it's 50 bajillion spin-offs. But we're going to focus on this one.
That's right.
So, our impressions of the prose style. How does this story read? Is it trying to achieve any particular tone? How well does it achieve this? Narrator, your picker. I'm going to ask you.
The the particular tone this author is trying to achieve is frustration, I think. It's written as a comedy. How well the author accomplished this, I think we will have feelings about.
Well, how about I ask you this? Do you think it wrote comedy properly? Because this is an ongoing thing with a lot of authors who try to write comedy in fic form the way that they would write comedy in visual form. Do you think this one does it right?
It's a point later on. Personally, you guys may feel differently. I thought the fact that Pinkie Pie is constantly hitting on Rainbow Dash and Rainbow Dash is completely oblivious, I feel like it was overdone. I feel like the author successfully hammered that point home, and I feel like it's a bit overdone. Like, yes, we have grasped the fact that you have that Pinkie Pie, that Rainbow Dash is oblivious. You have made that clear. abundantly clear, over and over again. That's it. That's the fic. Rainbow Dash is oblivious. I mean, to be fair, the title of the fic is The Incredibly Dense Mind of Rainbow Dash, so it is what it says on the tin. But my goodness, did he really hammer that point home.
Midnight, what do you think?
I would have to agree. Like, oh my word, I wanted to strangle Rainbow Dash and just be like, fuck her, come on. It's obvious. No one is this dense. No one. Well, I hope no one. But, I mean, it was... Yeah.
I will say it took me a very long time to realise that MP was hitting on me when we first got together.
Like, oh my God. Why would you bring that up now?
Because she said, I hope nobody is. Well, yeah, here I am.
I was really hoping to get through this podcast without a discussion of my own personal lives, because I am the most oblivious man in the entire world. I've realized, I had a shower thought like 20 years later where I realized a girl was hitting on me. I was like, and suddenly it was just like, oh, that makes sense.
I remember you had the same thought about that guy in the Marines when you were sitting on my couch.
Yeah, not just girls either. 20 years later, suddenly realized that a guy was hitting on me.
Okay, let me rephrase. No one is... Because I just remembered a few times when Visual himself has also told me that they were hitting on you. I'm like, what? Okay, no one's that oblivious to that many attempts on a Hearts and Hooves or Valentine's Day. Like, this was attempt after attempt after attempt after attempt after attempt, and like Pinkie even comes out and says the exact thing that Rainbow Dash says would be clear to her.
I have comments on that one, but go ahead.
Just like, okay, no, people are sometimes a little bit dense or don't notice the one or two hints or nudges, but this, I agree with Neighrator that this was way too over the top.
This was my point later on, but we may as well get into it now. Like, was this overdone?
Well, that definitely counts as prose style. Was it overdone? I'm gonna guess from Midnight and Neighrator, it's yes.
I hit my head a few
Correct. Times. It's a fair assumption. You can assume that I feel that way. Yes.
Clever, you have feelings?
I have feelings.
On this specifically?
Yes. Yeah, titty sprinkles. I'm going to just work that in to just about every response now.
Okay, Neighrator, you now know why in the description your name is going to be Titty Sprinkles.
Titty Sprinkles.
Oh my God.
That's your new OC. That's your new OC.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, Neighrator, you say the thing. You are now tied to the thing. That's the thing.
And luckily that thing is really, really witty and funny.
Yes. It's a meme that I'm the only one has seen. It was a quote from, like, somebody wrote. Oh my God, I got to put it in the chat now. Morgan,
okay,
you read literally anything in Morgan Freeman's voice. It's not original or witty. It's a meme from like 7 years ago that apparently only I remember.
You know, in my head, that's a Sean Connery thing that you would read. It'd be like something he would say on, like, Jeopardy on SNL.
Could you read that in? You can do a Sean Connery pony voice. Can you say Titty Sprinkles in that?
Yes, I can say Titty Sprinkles. Quite fond of Titty Sprinkles. You take a titty and you put some sprinkles on top. It's quite nice.
Oh my God, yes.
My Sean Connery pony is not quite calibrated, but it's sorry.
Yes, Titty Sprinkles.
Right, back to the actual story then. Yes.
Put the prose. I think part of what's going on here is that we've got a mentality for Rainbow Dash that's caught somewhere between a 7-year-old's idea of Rainbow Dash and an adult's idea of Rainbow Dash. And I can almost see this being an episode if it weren't for the references to banging.
I think, I'm going to interject. The more I read this story, and I don't know anything about this author, but the more I thought this author was English, or at the very least British, because the phrase namby-pamby, is that American? I've never heard that said by an American.
I mean,
the fact that
kind of old-timey, I think.
Yeah, banging being used as a euphemism for sex, that's very British. The more I thought about it, the more this person just came across as...
I would have to agree.
British.
Yeah.
I being across the pond, I didn't get that necessarily. Namby-pamby is an odd choice, but it's not unheard of. And banging would be
very
something
common over here.
Well, but here it would be something that you would expect a youth to say. Like, it wouldn't be something that an adult would say. It really comes across, like, to me, as a result of word choice and thought choice, that we've got this version of Rainbow Dash that's not really an adult in a more normal sense, in outside of like fanfic versions of children's characters. It just felt like it was this. I think that was part of what kind of drove me a little, like, I wanted more. It was because I wanted a little more self-awareness. And I'm not even saying that, they can be thick. Like, I myself have been incredibly thick. Unfortunately, I can't claim that it's because I've realized people were hitting on me, because that's just not been my life. That's not who I am. But I definitely, I have, like, 20 years later, finally gotten a joke upon reflection, and it took me that long to get, because I can be that thick. So while there's a part of me that wants to believe that no one can be this thick, I think that they can. And so that didn't bother me so much as there just seemed to be kind of a lack of maturity to Rainbow in her thought process. It really felt like it was this weird combination. And so that's where I think I felt like this fell down a little bit, is that I wanted this adult version of Rainbow Dash to have a little more going on upstairs, whereas we were just getting like a made for 7-year-old kind of audience version of what's going on upstairs.
Could that possibly be because of when this story was written in relation to canon? Because this was written during season 2.
I'm just telling you what I think. I mean, could there be reasons? Sure.
Yeah, I'm just wondering whether or not could that have influenced. Like, where was Rainbow Dash's character in canon at this point? Does that reflect in the story, or do you think it's still too much?
So I think what a good fan fiction does when they try and make these adult characters is I think they try and flesh them out a little more. And perhaps in season 2, this was a more fleshed out version of Rainbow. I felt like it wasn't. I don't know. When was that time one done? The one I like. The one I bought the book of.
The one where Twilight is Solid Snake?
No, the one where Rainbow Dash hits a storm and gets uploaded into the cloud.
Lost Time. Let me have a look.
Because that characterization of Rainbow
2015.
is... Okay, so 3 years later.
This was 2015, and it was late 2015 into early 2016. That was season 5 versus season 6.
Yeah,
canon.
I don't know. I feel like it's a really stunted Rainbow, and that's part of, I think, my frustration with it, is that as much as we do try and get into her headspace, and I don't think it's like, I know we're going to talk about characterization. I think, like, it's not a bad characterization of Rainbow. I just think it really lacks a certain depth and verisimilitude that draws me into a characterization. So it feels very surfacey. And I know that there'll be people out there be like, well, Rainbow isn't all that deep, and Rainbow is kind of, is that kind of surfacey. Like, she's not a thinker, man, but I don't know. There's a moment where she like gets angry at Cloud Kicker for being rightfully upset at Derpy for stealing food.
We're going to get into that in the characterization, because I hated that. That was the one bit of the story I really didn't like. Like
that one, that really struck me as like, that doesn't work. Like, that Rainbow wouldn't be like reflexively angry like that. Like, even if
I would agree she would be reflexively angry. It was the thing she was angry at that pissed me off.
Okay.
Because
I mean, I can see being reflexively protective.
Protective, yes. But she wouldn't be... I think the idea of Derpy constantly stealing food, we're going to get into that. when we get to the narrator's point about Derpy being Flanderized. So just we'll hold that thought until then.
But my point is that it really felt like it was lacking in depth and rationale on who she was. And again, early fic, people are still trying to figure out these characters. Maybe, I mean, you could give lots of reasons why that is, but it's one of the reasons that I felt that this fic left me wanting more, and why I had a hard time connecting with it. And I think I could have enjoyed it more if we had a little more going upstairs for Rainbow, I guess.
Genuine question.
Go ahead.
Given how big Winningverse is, presumably Rainbow Dash does get some characterization evolution. Does this make you want to read that?
I think I would like someone who's already read it to recommend a particular fic to read, because I would say I don't want to have to suffer through until I get to a characterization that's good. Or that might be a bit harsh, but
no,
that's
fair. That's too short for bad fics.
Yeah. Like I would rather
fics that we don't like.
Well, it's not that I hated this. I just I would rather someone recommend me. I would say, like, give me an example of one where she's more realized, and I would absolutely read that, because there's a lot of hints in this story that the author has some talent and has the ability to create some interesting characterization, and I think that they're still developing their craft here. So and that's fine. Like, I don't want to penalize an author for practicing their craft and not necessarily their first thing out or an early thing out is the Mona Lisa or something, but like I wouldn't mind a recommendation for someone that stuck with them and said, hey, try this one. This one's, they really hit their stride. And that's what I would say with that. Like, I'm interested in the phenomenon, but I wouldn't mind someone saying, this one, try this one.
No, Matt, what do you think?
I mostly took that that fanfiction as an old-time actual movie. It reminded me of it's 1930 something, 1938 movie. It's called Bringing Up Baby. I love that film. Yeah, I got so angry on that movie. I had to watch it for school, and I was like, oh my god, can you get more angry and more annoying? And I think that's kind of the tone it went for. So it's very ironic, very satirical, and pushes Rainbow Dash's blindness to, 200. So I think, it's a comedy that wants you to get frustrated and maybe make fun of Rainbow Dash a little bit.
Yeah.
At least that's how I took it. But I get that you're so focused on your work that you don't notice anything going on around you. But at some point, just please, Rainbow, please, stop running into clouds, thunderous cloud, and just please think.
Midnight, what do you think?
I basically echo everything else. Like, yeah, I basically echo what everyone else has said. I don't know if I could add anything else. My bad.
I have something to add before we move on. I've noticed in general, just like as an author, I would say generally if you can get people shouting at their screens or shouting at their books saying, she likes you, you idiot, or something like that, if you can get them, sometimes it's good to have your characters act irrationally so that your audience is more engaged. It's like, no, that's not what you're supposed to do. And I think that is a way to get your audience to be really invested and really engaged with the story. I think it was very overdone in this particular fic. Just the way I feel.
Right. So we're going on to the next point now, which is characterization. We're going to start with Ardy and Pinkie as canon characters with a bit of, I'll be honest, Rarity and Applejack are in there too for one scene. We can touch on that if you want to, and their characterization, because I think, although she was there briefly, I think Applejack does suffer from some of the same problems as Ardy in this one. Let's see how we feel about that. And I'm going to start with Midnight, because I ended with you last time.
Fair enough. Something felt off. most of the time. Pinkie, I felt, was the only one that was relatively normal. But otherwise, Artie seemed far too, well, blank-headed. And no, I guess Rarity was kind of on point as well, maybe. I don't know. As I was reading, I was like, are these the same characters that I know? Or are they maybe just, as you say, that it's an old fic, so maybe this is just what they were like beforehand? So it's a bit hard whenever you come back to the story and you're after watching the entire series and everything, and you're like, I remember them having more stuff in them beforehand. So, yeah. Pinkie, I was happy with, though I did also want to say, come on, be a bit more obvious. I.e., stick a cake in her face with a heart on it or something. Dash just was annoying, eventually. And I hurt my head a lot. So, yeah.
Nomad, what do you think?
Yeah, Pinkie Pie on point, because she's not. That's a thing that is interesting with Pinkie Pie. She's adapting a lot, or at least I feel like she's always adapting a lot. So like, straight up asking Rainbow Dash, okay, how do you do that? Okay, you're doing that, so I'm gonna speak the same language as you. She's very versatile in that. So I feel like Pinkie Pie was okay. She tried literally every single thing she can. Multiple languages doesn't work because Rainbow Dash is dumb.
Rainbow Dash is dumb bilingually.
Yeah. And for Rainbow Dash, I have to admit the "oh, I'm so awesome" thing. Just please don't. If you need to tell yourself "I'm so awesome" every single time something bad-ish happens, you have issues and you need therapy. And yeah, Rainbow Dash was both too brash and not enough, in my opinion. But yeah, Pinkie Pie was fine. The Rainbow Dash was just... she was like in that episode, I don't remember the title, when the other main six are turning into Ne'er-do-well, and she's trying so much to prove that she can handle things. Because, oh, I have to deal with that stupid lovey-dovey day that I hate, but I have to do it. And, oh, I can do that in 10 seconds. Okay, well, why don't you do it? See, I'm so great, and then I'm so stupid at the same time. I don't know, very meh on Rainbow Dash.
So, what do you think of Blossomforth and Cloud Kicker and sort of Derpy?
I like everything involving Derpy by principle. I don't know, I really like the history of the character. The fact that she's just triggered to steal Muffin and pummel everything single person is kind of weird. And the two other are just psychic for the sake of psychic, really. You have like the one who wants to be loved, who had a date, and then you had the antithesis of the one who just wants to bang. I don't know. I see what they're trying to do as characters, but at the same time, please just let it go. At some point, it's already dead, dudes. Just leave it.
Neighrator, what do you think?
Blossomforth and Cloud Kicker are fine. They're background characters, and this fic is early enough in the fandom that it like you said, it largely established what these characters are like in sort of in fanon. Rarity and Applejack, largely on point. I can get behind it. So sorry, the other characters in the story. Come on.
So we've got Pinkie Dash, Rara Jack, Blossomforth, Cloud Kicker, bit of Derpy. And if you want, you can look into the fact that Derpy was Flanderized, because that's the point you made as an addendum to this one.
I'm saving that one for last. Pinkie Pie seemed like a little too much of an airhead in this episode, in this fic.
Really?
For my taste, yeah. Maybe it's just a little personal foible. So I think too often people associate people that are happy all the time with being sort of airheaded or kind of dumb. That's an inherently pessimistic attitude, because like if you inherently believe that, well, if she was smart, then she wouldn't be happy all the time, because she would realize everything sucks all the time, which is sort of antithetical to the My Little Pony philosophy in general, I guess. So I felt like Pinkie Pie just was a little bit of an airhead in this particular
I
story.
would say she's a bit of an egghead as well because, like Nomad said, she kept switching tracks. She did keep trying different ways of getting Dash to understand what she was after.
Rainbow Dash was also pretty Flanderized, in my opinion. Actually, it's like, yeah, I'm awesome, and that's my whole personality. And whether
for the benefits of our viewers, listeners, whatever, what's Flanderized?
You might be in a better position to describe it as. Let me see if I can.
No, I'm not.
In the early seasons of The Simpsons, Flanders was a relatively generic character, but he did have a few catchphrases, hi diddly ho neighborino, and so on. And then sort of in the later seasons, he became dumber and just became a parody of himself and more until the point where he was just, I think Flanderization in general, you sort of become defined by the tiny little foibles, and that becomes that character's entire personality.
Yes.
Maybe someone else would like to give it a try.
Well, using Wiktionary and looking it up, it suggests that exactly that. Flanderization is a term describing the process where a fictional character's traits become so exaggerated and oversimplified that they become the defining aspect of their personality, often to the point of becoming a caricature of themselves. The term was coined by TV Tropes in reference to Ned Flanders of The Simpsons. So initially, Ned was a rounded character, but became known for his religious fervor and became almost solely defined by that trait over time.
Thank you.
So, yeah, you're totally on point.
So, therefore, go with RD being Flanderized?
I think yes, in my opinion.
I agree.
Do you think it's a problem for all the characters in the story, NP?
Not all of them. I think, maybe a little bit. Rarity calls AJ a ruffian, and she's a lady. And Applejack's like, no, I ain't into none of that frou-frou stuff. Yeah, I think actually, now that I think about it, I think the majority of the characters are kind of Flanderized.
How much of that do you think is writing style and how much is, active characterization?
It is active characterization. It's just really shallow. It's the shallowest possible version of what we see in the show. And again, it is early fandom. So, and like you said, this fic sort of defined this mildly Flanderized versions of these characters that we see largely became accepted fanon.
And
Clever Hooves, what do you reckon about the characterization?
I mean, I think we've now put a more academic spin on what I was saying about Rainbow's characterization earlier. Just that, yeah, there's a lack of depth there. So Flanderization is a good way to put it. Absolutely. I don't think that it's necessarily wrong. Like there are moments where it's like, yeah, that's Rainbow. Like, just sort of her thought process. Pinkie Pie, here's the problem with Pinkie Pie. I feel like if you have Pinkie Pie in canon, like from the show, she's kind of a asexual character in a fashion, in that she wants every pony to be happy, but it's almost with this childlike view of the world, and we could get into why that is or whatnot. But when you get into like an adult kind of, I want to go out with you, there's got to be a level of depth there that goes beyond that, or at least I appreciate a level of depth that goes beyond that. And so otherwise it just feels like you're trying to push adult feelings on a childlike character. Like even Forrest Gump kind of has more going on in that respect in terms of depth of feeling. Whereas Pinkie Pie being Flanderized is not doesn't have enough depth to really make it believable. So she's interested in Rainbow Dash here, and we still have a very light and bubbly Pinkie, but I don't think it's totally Flanderized. Like she gets angry at one point, which is almost uncharacteristic at this point in the show, but I liked it because I feel like, yeah, okay, you're actually getting frustrated with someone who's being frustrated that, you know, they're not getting it. And I liked that. I felt like that actually pushed Pinkie Pie into a more mature kind of read. And I found that that was part of the story that I liked the most, like when she actually tells off Rainbow and calls her a poop head or a doo-doo head. But why call her a doo-doo head and then like set up a song where she might just about say fuck? Like there's this random song, you know, where she's like, I'm just gonna read the last couple lines of it. It's like, you might not be a smarty pants or know how to apple buck, but you're still really awesome and you have a lot of pluck. And maybe finally today I'll have a bit of luck. We'll lie down somewhere comfortable and then we'll, oh, hi there, Derpy. Like, clearly we know that she was about to swear, but she's going to call Rainbow a doo-doo head. You know, like, I get that that's for humor and I understand it entirely, but it's like, well, either make her be a little more adult or, you know, like call her a shithead. Like, don't call her a doo-doo head. You know, like, what we don't need to, you know, this is, yeah. So, yeah, so little points like that. Like, I otherwise thought that Pinkie's characterization was actually pretty good. I think because Rarity and Applejack make such a short cameo, it's memorable, but you know, their Flanderization is forgivable. I actually really liked the whole we're not on a date here. No, we're not on a date. Well, who said we're on a date? I like that Applejack like screaming out exactly what's going on, but saying it's not. It strikes me as funny, and that I thought was probably the funniest part of the whole fic. To be honest, I really felt the humor unfortunately fell a little flat in other places. As for Derpy, I don't know. I felt she got better treatment here than she did in the show. Although making her like muffin obsessed seemed more like a fanon.
I think this was right after I can't even remember what episode it was, where literally for a while she was just called Muffins in this kind of material. I swear there's like literal merch where she's called Muffins because Hasbro knew people wanted merch of her, but they couldn't call her the name that everybody had dubbed her.
She's listed as Muffin Mare in the end of the My Little Pony movie.
Is she? Well, yeah, because there was the whole thing about you can't call her Derpy. Because I'll be honest, Derpy's not really a word that gets used in the UK. I learned what it meant because of the drama around Derpy Hooves in the show. And I think at one point they said a character was called Ditsy Doo and she'd done the weather wrong and put the birds in the wrong place, I think. And then people just assumed they meant this character because clearly a Pegasus who's messing up has to be this one. So she's had about 3 names. And I swear, in the 100th episode where she gets a speaking role, nobody ever says her name. I swear that's the thing where nobody says her name.
Well, I think that's right, actually.
She'll always be Derpy, whether Hasbro wants it. Yeah, she'll be Derpy.
Just like Vinyl Scratch is Vinyl Scratch and not always DJ Pone 3.
I like the cleverness of DJ Pone 3, but Vinyl Scratch, sticks.
And Octavia Philharmonica rather than Octavia Melody.
The DJ Pone 3 is her stage name. You know,
the fandom folded it in together. Just like Bon Bon and Sweetie Drops.
Vinyl Scratch is her given name.
Yeah.
And then, but it makes sense.
But getting back to the characterization, I just want to say that I really felt that Rainbow's thickness has a rationale.
Not with 2 C's.
Yes, not with 2 C's, which I hate. I think she doesn't like Pinkie that way. Like, if the author meant that she did and didn't realize it, that was lost on me as a reader.
I think there were hints at the start of the story, like when she's talking to Pinkie and her face gets really hot and she can't understand why she's blushing.
Yeah,
but that was kind of discarded partway through.
Yeah, but then she like goes on about how annoying it would be to have Pinkie around all the time, and it really comes across as accurate, like for this version of Rainbow. So when Pinkie proposes, like, and it speaks plainly exactly what Rainbow Dash says, this is what a person would have to say, and and this is how I would say it so that a person would get it. And so then Pinkie says exactly the thing, and then Dash just like loses it and laughs at her. Like, it makes sense to me because there's nothing in Rainbow at all that sees Pinkie as anything but a great friend. And that's the part where I get frustrated, because it's like, okay, I can believe that, that you wouldn't get that this person's hitting on you because you just think that would be absolutely ridiculous. But then that means that you have zero feelings for her. Like, and so that's the part where I'm left at the end with just a big question mark. It's like, what, that's almost mean to do to Pinkie, like to have her continually like go after someone that doesn't really reciprocate. And so I think that's part of where this falls apart for me, is that I don't believe Rainbow really has feelings for her, at least not romantic feelings. And if they're so far buried beyond, to her that she can't even like that she is this dense, then yes, Rainbow is too dense. In this fic, I would argue she's not if she doesn't really have any feelings, romantic feelings for Pinkie. And I think that's part of the central tension that doesn't work for me in this fic, is that I don't really get a sense of Rainbow actually liking Pinkie in a romantic way. Other than a few bit of blushes, but I mean, that could just be embarrassment. Like, it could be, you can easily write it off. Because in her mental space that we're into, like, there's nothing, like absolutely nothing that would lead me to, like, there isn't even like the possibility in her mental cognisphere that as we're reading this. And that's what I kind of wanted. Like, I wanted Rainbow to be like, maybe not realizing that she has these feelings like immediately, but there should be some things that crop up that would, like, instead of being like, man, it would be annoying if she was around all the time, be like, well, it wouldn't be so bad if she was around all the time. But that's not what we get. So that's the part of the characterization that really doesn't work for me, is not even so much that she's Flanderized. It's that the whole point of the fic is that they're supposed to be kind of shipped together, and I don't know, it just ends up feeling almost cruel to Pinkie Pie. And I don't like fics that are cruel to Pinkie Pie, at least with no servable purpose, because she's too precious.
Right. So the point we're on is, how does this fic handle the concept of shipping? Dat Rara Jack, though, is Rainbow even interested in Pinkie? I think Clever's made his thoughts on is Rainbow even interested in Pinkie very clear. So Neighrator, I'm coming to you with this one. How do you think this fic handled the concept of shipping, with specific reference to Rara Jack and Pinkie Dash?
In reference to how this fic handled shippings, I would say,
yeah. How do you feel about it? Like, is it your cup of tea?
I would, in a word, poorly.
Woof.
I don't actually.
Shots fired.
I don't actually believe that it's possible for someone to be subconsciously attracted to someone else in the way that Rainbow Dash is written to be attracted to Pinkie Pie in this story, and also be completely oblivious to their advances to an infuriating degree. I don't think that's possible. I don't think you can have both. If you're subconsciously attracted to someone, I think you would be inclined to notice if that person is hitting on you really, really, really hard. So in general, I would say this is handled poorly in this story.
Okay.
Agree.
Midnight, what do you reckon?
I would have to agree. It's like, now that it's been pointed out to me a little bit, like when I read the story, I was just like, well, they're together now. But yeah, you guys are right. That she doesn't show much interest, bar that blushing. So how does that work? I mean, of course, there's sometimes when it takes one person to be interested in it, interested in another, and then it sort of grows from there. But that doesn't usually happen that often, as far as I know. I don't know. Someone else speak with experience, but yeah, it's not well written in that regard. Then, although admittedly, I was more face palming too much to notice. So, I think the most well written was kind of the jokingness with Applejack and Rarity. At least they were joking with each other a little bit, or teasing each other. Well, Rarity was teasing Applejack, so yeah. But yeah, that wasn't well written. No, I agree with everyone else.
Nomad, what do you reckon?
Same thing here. I agree with everyone else. The point of Clever that Pinkie Pie is not exactly a character I would ship. Like, I go with that. I think they tried that with SpongeBob, like a character who is overly childlike in its behavior, and suddenly you have joking about I'll give you more sex. Like Rainbow Dash being a jokester.
There is no possible way anyone could have missed.
Yeah, no, like it took me a second read, and I had because French, so I had to read the sentence out loud to understand the joke. But yeah, no, the shipping. Pinkie Pie. Sorry, the cat is stepping on me. The Pinkie, she's sleeping on my arm right now. It's very uncomfortable. Pinkie Pie shipping is weird, at least to me. For the Rary Jack, I like that ship. I feel like they complete each other a lot. But just Applejack screaming, I don't know. At this point, probably most of Ponyville is aware of them dating. So what, Applejack, why do you yell?
Because Flanderization is funny.
Pretty much.
That was that particular scene is worth bringing up. So there's one point where the they're out on their date. That's not a date. Maybe it's a date. And Rainbow Dash looks up and notices that something with the weather has gone bad. So she says, "Okay, I'll be back in 1 sec, Pinks." And she flies up to handle the situation.
I think the implication is this is when the CMC have stolen the Rainbow's colours for their love potion.
Yes, correct.
Which I thought was a nice touch with canon.
Which was a nice touch. That's one nice thing we can say about the story is it does tie in well with, little moments from the show like that. But Pinkie Pie shouts up, "It's been more than a sec, Rainbow Dash. Do you need more sex? Do you need me to give you more sex?"
So that's what it was about? Oh, fuck, I missed that.
Yes. Yeah.
I didn't get that either.
You didn't get that? Someone
you really
shouting
need
up,
to
"Hey,
say it
do
out
you
loud.
need more sex?" And that was...
Yeah.
You didn't
Until
put that together?
You said it out loud, brain didn't brain.
Yeah,
I was just about to make the point that no one could have possibly missed the implication there, and here everyone on the podcast has done it.
Hey,
You don't have an
that.
excuse. You're a native English speaker.
I'm also dumb,
Oh,
You were not dumb.
You're not
I'll
dumb.
point out again how many times I missed that MP was into me for 5 years.
I don't... This silence is becoming uncomfortable, so I'm going to say something.
Well, it's Clever's turn to
doesn't
talk
make
about
you dumb.
just shipping. Clever, talk about shipping.
Okay. I agree with, I've already said pretty much the same thing, is that I don't buy the Pinkie Dash here. I just don't. Not the way it's done.
What do you think of the Rare Jack then?
I thought it was funny. I thought it was humorous, and it felt like parody. And especially the way that Rarity at the end talks about how it couldn't possibly work, but then works herself into like a frenzy of thinking. Yeah, like she just, basically works herself up like to the point where I feel like she needs to be alone for a minute with her own
nice
fanfic of their lives.
A warm bath.
Yeah, and maybe her Bob, but it's it's clear that they both have sort of not so latent feelings for each other there, even if they're not necessarily best suited for each other, depending on where you stand on the whole Rarejack thing. I didn't have a problem with it. I thought it was cute and funny, and I felt like that's actually was in terms of like funny and romance, that I felt was the best written funny romance in the whole thing. So I didn't have a problem with it. I don't mind even like kind of mildly editing characters to sort of, for humor's sake, as long as it's a mild editing. And that's kind of how I viewed what was going on there. So I didn't have a problem with that ship. But the Rainbow and Pinkie, I mean, other people have done that. I mean, you've even shipped the two of them together, Scribbler, and I think it can work.
I ship too? Rarejack?
Yeah. Oh, no, Rainbow and Pinkie.
I was going to say, I don't like Rarejack, so if I did that one, it was accidental.
No, you've done Rainbow and Pinkie. In all the opponents, you had the two of them together.
Yeah, I don't like Pinkie Dash. I just fundamentally, for reasons that are on my own, don't like Rarejack.
I think it can work. It didn't make sense here. Like getting as much into Rainbow's head as we did, there wasn't enough for it to make sense. And like Neighrator said, and I already said, like it really just, she's either so oblivious to her own feelings that it still doesn't make sense, or she just doesn't like her, and not that way at least. And I can't see it, not the way she's written here. So
I'll say one thing. I reckon, this kind of segues into the next point, I reckon the entire fic was written for the ending line. That final line from Rainbow Dash, that Pinkie's kiss came out of nowhere, despite being preceded by 14,000 words of Pinkie dropping hints the size of nuclear bombs. I reckon the entire fic was written for that.
It started with the last line and worked their way backwards.
Yeah, I do. And I don't think that's a bad thing.
See.
Yeah, I mean, like it delivers on its premise.
Yeah, and I think that I do think it's a bit. Sorry if you can hear my cats in the background. I do think that it's a bit of your mileage may vary. That if this kind of story, where the characters are oblivious and it's all a little bit slapstick and farcical, because that's what it reminded me of, was a proper like 1930s through 1960s Hollywood romantic farce. That's what this reminded me of. And I get the feeling this is the kind of story that would work a lot better adapted. That there are some stories that work better in audio-visual form than in written form, and I get the feeling this is one of them. And I think that if you enjoy that style of story, none of the issues we've talked about will matter, because it's very much the nth degree of that kind of story. And if that is what appeals to you, you will enjoy this. It all depends on how much patience you have for that style of romantic comedy.
I would latch onto that and say, and I think the reason why that would work is because we wouldn't get the internal machinations that are revealed here of Rainbow. And so you could then go on to believe that she has much more charitable things to think about Pinkie about than what she reveals here.
So hang on. That's a thought. Would this story then work better as a third-person story rather than a first-person?
Or at least in anybody's head but Rainbow's.
Well, like Pinkie said, would it work better in
limited
Pinkie's mind?
third-person omniscient? Yeah, no. Pinkie, no. I think maybe just a limited third-person omniscient would have suited this story pretty well.
I mean, I get that that's not what the author was going for.
I think if it was limited third-person omniscient and still on Rainbow Dash, we'd have all the same problems. If it was...
Yeah, you might be right.
If it was third-person omniscient for all the characters, however, I think that might work a bit better, because we'd get more of Pinkie's frustration and the fact that they are working at odds with each other. I actually do think it would work really well from Pinkie's point of view, because I think a lot of Rainbow Dash's obtuseness without her internal monologue would just come across as, okay, clearly I wasn't clear enough, let's go clearer.
Yeah, I probably would have enjoyed that a little more, or at least it wouldn't have come across as so contrary.
MP?
I guess if you think about it, a limited third-person omniscient is more or less the way we take in films. So I think your original point still stands. Yes, I think a lot of the problems we have with this fic stem from the fact that we can see all of Rainbow Dash's internal machinations and they don't make sense. Like it's too much.
So we needed less Rainbow.
Yes.
More Pinkie? Or, even better, would this have worked from the point of view of the character who became the lead of the Winningverse, like Cloud Kicker? Would it have worked better from Cloud Kicker's point of view?
Potentially.
Like not just for this fic, but for the overall Winningverse in general. Yeah, I think that's the fix, actually. Should have wrote it from Cloud Kicker's point of view.
Maybe that's what the author also came to that conclusion. I'm going to rephrase that entire sentence because that came out weird. Maybe that's the conclusion the author came to as well, and that's why they switched to Cloud Kicker's point of view for the entire rest of the series, I think.
Oh.
Could be.
Because Cloud Kicker, I must admit, the hints that we got of later Winningverse, because I've read a smattering of Winningverse, not a lot, it did make me want to read more of it, just to find out what the fuck are the rules. What are Cloud Kicker's rules?
Yeah, what's Rule 7?
And what happened with Blossomforth's date? Like, who was it? Was it Thunderlane? Because I can just remember all the background ponies, those two were paired up a lot, Thunderlane and Blossomforth. And yet he was stated as being on a date with somebody else. So was that what happened?
I think that's canon too. I think Thunderlane is written in fanon generally to be a bit of a, how would you say, tail chaser?
Cheater.
Cheater.
Yeah, I do remember that being part of his fanon characterization over the years.
So I'm not putting the pieces together until right this second, but I think that's what happened to Blossomforth and why she is sad and why she's alone on Hearts and Hooves Day.
And I would like to read more of that. Like, I think if we had this from Cloud Kicker's point of view of this character desperately trying to get her boss set up with her boss, the pony who has a crush on her boss, and then Cloud Kicker doesn't understand, even if you take the point of view of Rainbow Dash isn't interested in Pinkie, Cloud Kicker wouldn't understand that because she doesn't do romance, she just does one-night stands. So she couldn't understand the concept of Rainbow Dash is not interested in Pinkie. But Pinkie's clearly interested in her, so it must work out because I don't really get romance, so this must be how it works. I think that would fix all the problems in the story.
Maybe. But then what would be her rationale for trying to fix them up?
She likes Rainbow Dash. Remember, they go back to flight camp together. She's really close friends with Rainbow Dash, so maybe she just wants her friend to be happy in a way that Cloud Kicker can't be on her own.
Yeah, but if she hasn't given any indication that she's even interested in Pinkie, you see,
but she is blushing around Pinkie, and I must admit, same way that a lot of people in the fandom see their interactions and ship them. Somebody who's not particularly good at romance, like Cloud Kicker, might see their friend interactions and go, "Oh, clearly they want to bang."
Well,
or she wants Rainbow Dash off her back.
I could believe a motivation like that. And that would be more comedic.
Yeah. Oh, hey, we fixed the fic.
This, I didn't put it in the doc. This might be as good a time as any to talk about how and why the Winningverse got its name. I didn't put this together until earlier, until about 15 minutes before the podcast.
It's a 2011 reference. Who the fuck is going to get that in 2025? Off the top of their heads.
Is it Charlie Sheen reference?
Yes.
It is Charlie Sheen, yes.
Yeah.
That's the whole point. So I don't know if Charlie Sheen is, I don't know if Cloud Kicker is an in-universe representation of Charlie Sheen.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the Tiger Blood by winning interview. That's where the story, the whole universe gets its name. You've read more of it. You've read more Winningverse than I have, Scribbler. Is Cloud Kicker just like Charlie Sheen in pony form?
From what I understand, yeah. Like I said, a lot of this became early fanon, that everybody was just writing Cloud Kicker as basically Charlie Sheen. And if I recall, the life and times of a winning pony was very influenced by that interview.
I see, now that seems more interesting to me.
Shall I read you the synopsis of The Life and Times of a Winning Pony?
Sure.
On TV Tropes, I got the same page up.
I've run the actual the fic on fanfiction.
Oh, go ahead.
Cloud Kicker might just have the wildest life of any pony in Equestria. Marvel at the insanity that is her life, and laugh at the suffering of her poor beleaguered best friend Blossomforth. And maybe, just maybe, there's more to her than just the lovable sex maniac every pony thinks she is. This is a semi-sequel to the incredibly dense mind of Rainbow Dash, not really a proper sequel since it's focused on Cloud Kicker and Blossomforth instead of Rainbow and Pinkie, but it's in the same continuity, so I guess that makes it a follow-up side-quote story or something. You don't need to have read The Incredibly Dense Mind of Rainbow Dash to read or enjoy this, but you ought to read it anyway, just because.
Because we did.
The TV tropes page for Life and Times of a Winning Pony, blah, blah, blah. The story tracks the life and times of Cloud Kicker, a fun-loving, ethical slut, which is hyperlinked, with a tendency to have lots of random sexual encounters and end up in wild misadventures. Well, so we're not slut-shaming. We love sluts. I'm a bit of a slut myself.
I think the proper term is polyamorous.
Titty sprinkles.
No, not polyamorous exactly, because she goes into it in the story. She dislikes forming catching feels, as the kids say, for her
she's
partners.
A serial monogamist.
Would you like to know what some of the chapter titles are, just to give you an idea of how rooted in Charlie Sheen this is?
Go.
Sure.
The second ever title is The Pony with Tiger Blood.
There we go.
The Pony who is a total frickin' rock star from Mars.
Oh, yeah.
The pony whose brain you can't handle. The pony who is addicted to winning.
What about cocaine? There's got to be cocaine.
The pony who is here to right every single wrong. The pony who's on a quest to claim absolute victory. The pony who makes Celestia and Luna look like droopy-eyed, wingless foals. The pony who has one gear, go. Interview. The pony who is all passion. The pony who has a plan. The piney, who loves her family violently.
Violently?
Yeah.
The pony who is by winning.
The pony who can't be processed with a normal brain. The pony who is tired of ignoring that she marches to a different beat. The pony who goes on strafing runs in her underwear. It's an odd one.
When did ponies wear underwear?
Exactly. The pony who's done winning because she's already won.
I feel like Rainbow Dash would be competitive with this pony.
She is.
All right, then.
Not in terms of how many people she can sleep with.
No, just in general.
Not with body count, but just, the whole, I'm awesome. Well, I'm awesomer.
Yeah.
It's just super weird to me that this whole Winningverse cinematic universe is all based on like that very memeable Charlie Sheen interview from 12 years ago, which is just not relevant to anyone anymore today. Everyone's forgotten about that. But this one fic has had such a huge influence on the fandom.
And maybe
it's just a very
the fact that the meme has fallen out is one of the reasons people seem to have fallen out of love with Life and Times of a Winning Pony. I'm wondering when the last one in the series was posted, actually. I'm just going to have a look. They kept...
I actually have
a going
question.
With Freeport Venture. Keep going. Yes, Nomad, we'll have a look.
I have no idea of what Charlie Sheen is, because I think it's not a thing in France. Please help.
Right.
Okay.
It's okay. I did have to look him up to remind myself, so you're completely fine there.
Charlie Sheen he gained notoriety from one particular TV show, which I cannot remember the name of, but it was pretty popular in America.
It was 2.5 Men.
In the late '80s, early 2010s, and he gave this very memeable interview with an interviewer where he says all these lines. Bro basically has a very intense lifestyle. It is clearly a very cocaine-fueled interview where he talks about how he's so basically he's just he's dating two porn stars at the same time, and I think polyamorous relationships were very much more scandalous back then than they are today. And basically that's the interview. I'll link it to you.
It was turned into a song, which also helped.
Okay.
He basically he was very high paid because 2.5 Men was a very successful show, but his behavior just became more and more erratic, and he ended up getting fired from the show, and that was big news. And then he had that interview afterwards where he basically doubled and tripled down on his behavior, and I don't know. Like I think that should have been the fact that people kind of ate it up. Should have been a warning to America that, of things to come.
Right.
You shouldn't reward people for their bad behavior.
It was 14 years ago, and Nomad, basically watch that 2-minute song that I've just sent you that takes all the funny bits of this interview and put them into song form.
Anyway, even I had forgotten some of the high points of that interview. There's so many.
Yeah. Link in the doobly-doo.
Okay, I get it now. He's very unhinged. Holy shit.
Yes, a lot of cocaine. Don't do drugs, kids.
I'm curious. You're gonna have to bleep that out or not?
Oh, this
Sorry,
is getting monetized anyway.
So, yeah. Charlie Sheen, the winning interview, gave birth to a pony fic that largely shaped early fandom. We're in a weird timeline.
I feel like this is like a 70 degrees from Charlie Sheen episode.
I mean, it's like 1 degree, let's be honest.
Wow, okay. Let's, anything else to say on that point?
Nothing for me. Does that help, Nomad?
Kind of.
Yeah, it's very American.
At least now I get the vibe.
The whole interview is 12 minutes long. It's worth a watch. It's every bit as wild as it sounds.
Yeah. Why couldn't we have Charlie Sheen as your president instead of Trump?
I don't.
Oh my God! This is the point we're at now.
I think you pretty much have Charlie Sheen as the president.
No, because Charlie Sheen at the very least wouldn't care about half the shit that Trump cares about. He definitely wouldn't be doing half the stuff that Trump's doing. He'd be like, give me drugs, give me drugs. Now you competent people run the thing.
Maybe.
If Charlie Sheen was alive today, he would have launched a meme coin and rug pulled everybody.
Hang on, he's dead.
He's not dead. He's not dead.
Did I say alive today? I meant to say if the meme happened today, he would have launched his own meme coin and
shit. You made me worry then.
Everybody.
Like fuck. Did he die?
Didn't they do a reboot of 2.5 Men, but
without him,
with someone else?
Yeah, without him.
Well, no, they killed off his character.
Yeah, but then I recently saw a clip that brought him back.
Oh no, I didn't know that.
What? No.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised. Chuck Lorre's done worse. I mean, he reinvented young Sheldon, which I'm really not a fan of.
Oh, are you talking about the Mandy and the spin-off of Young Sheldon, or are you talking about
I'm talking about the producer, Chuck Lorre, of all those shows. He did 2.5 Men and all the rest of it. I wouldn't be surprised if he brought back Charlie Sheen for more of 2.5 Men, considering that after Big Bang Theory had finished, he kept going with more Big Bang Theory, just making all the characters young.
Well, I really liked Young Sheldon.
I wasn't a fan. Same reason for I'm not going to stop anybody else from enjoying Rare Jack or Young Sheldon. Just not my cup of tea.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, I'm curious about the series George and Mandy because it looks like it has a very different tone than Young Sheldon did, and I
get the feeling that all the shows are getting further and further away from their inception, rather like Winning Pony, actually. Which, did you like the fact I segued right back to what we're meant to be talking about?
You know
Nicely
what?
Done.
That was Neighrator level,
oh my God,
of bringing us back to it.
Because he's here, he's a good influence.
Titty sprinkles.
You, however, are a horrific influence.
I am the influence that you want, lady.
I'm not the influence. You're not the influence I want, but you're the influence I deserve.
No, I am the one you wanted. You asked me here.
That is true. Hence, I said you're the influence I deserve. Right. Okay. Does anybody else have anything to say about shipping? Because I've completely lost track of who I've asked and who I haven't.
I don't know if there's anything more we can tack to shipping.
I think we've already talked about the ending as well. The idea that we worked backwards.
I think that's exactly right. That makes a lot of sense that the author started with the ending and worked backwards from there. But maybe it's just me. You guys feel free to correct me because the reasons, but would you would you really just go up and kiss somebody who up to this point who you've established many times over has no idea that you're interested in them, you have no idea if they reciprocate those feelings. So would you really just go up and force yourself upon them? I feel like that was in poor taste.
I think it was,
or maybe hasn't aged as well.
I'm going to say I think that's an age thing. I think in 2012 that was probably fine. In 2025, post Me Too, really not.
I was going to say I think Pinkie could get away with it.
Not that she should.
I think she could.
Could is not the same as should.
Maybe, maybe whether or not you can get away with it is kind of the central point of the Me Too movement. Wow, very serious topic that I made a joke about. I'm sorry.
We are so
Anyway,
in
that's just-
2025.
All good.
So that's yeah, I just feel like that might be just kind of an example of the fic not aging super well. Don't go up and kiss people when they're not expecting it.
Yeah, I get the feeling that was a trope in a lot of things. Like, when you look back at a lot of the media from like, the 80s, the 90s, up until like early 2010s, that tended to be the message a lot of the time. And it really hasn't aged well.
La 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 la, don't be scared. You gotta kiss the girl.
I'm
maybe don't though.
I'm gonna go with that. Obviously, consent is 100% important, and that is important. I would say that they have enough of a relationship that if there was a misunderstanding, that it could be dealt with in a respectful and, like not necessarily traumatizing way. So I think that's more what
these versions of the characters.
I'm just saying that I think they have enough of a relationship that a misunderstanding of that level, wouldn't necessarily be traumatizing and terrible. I'm not advocating. Maybe. I'm not advocating for that behavior. I'm just, I guess I don't see it maybe as supremely problematic as it could be if it was just, if they didn't already have
I'm
a
just
strong
always going to be team
Also,
enthusiastic consent.
And I am also on team enthusiastic consent.
I'll just if I can offer a slight counterpoint, like I said, realizing in my 30s that I was on the spectrum, and with the benefit of hindsight, there have been situations where it was blatantly obvious to absolutely everyone that this girl was really, really wanted me to kiss her, and I didn't, either because I wasn't sure or because I was oblivious. So yeah.
So
I do. Sorry. I do agree there is a big difference between stranger or even first date, second date, whatever, and that sort of relationship. Still, consent is kind of important.
Very important.
Very important. But I do semi-understand, like, yeah, someone as dense as Rainbow might need someone to just kiss her outright, but at the same time, yeah, it's a slippery slope. It's a slippery slope.
Maybe in this particular case where Pinkie Pie has tried literally everything, including asking her straight up if she wants to bang.
I think the extenuating circumstances are very extenuating in this one.
Extremely extenuating. Painfully extenuating.
I'm like I said, like I'm enthusiastic on team consent. I also enthusiastic on, if you're capable of looking at a context. There are just some things that are contextual that hard and fast rules need to be examined. And I am, again, not saying that consent is ever off the table. I'm not saying that. Just saying that sometimes you need to apply a bit of analysis and contextualization to a situation to see what behavior does and does not make sense in context. That's all.
Well, the context, so the question of consent aside, I mean, I just feel like the fic ended very suddenly, and the question of consent aside,
I think it started with the ending, which, I'll be honest, we've all done that. NP, you started with the ending of Dick.
Yeah.
Dick?
Not
I'm
Dick.
sorry, what?
Tick.
Oh my god.
Right.
Oh, Tick.
The creepypasta.
It's very...
NP, you explain.
The fic is... That's not a fic. It's an original...
Tick. Not
Winningverse
Dick.
story. With your accent, it does get a little tricky. The fic is called
explain
Tick,
this.
TIC, as in a nervous tick. That's all.
Do you want to explain how you came up with the ending and went backwards?
Not particularly.
I would.
In your tick fic?
Nope. Let's not.
Oh, bum.
No, it's literally not though. This is not the story. We're not talking about my story.
I always want to talk about your story.
On the ending point, I think it had to end there, because if you would have gone after that, it would have unraveled. Because
you might be onto something.
Because if Rainbow now has to have an epiphany about whether or not she likes Pinkie Pie that way, you're going to undo the story somehow. Because up to this point, she's had zero romantic feelings towards her. Or you're going to have to say she felt that way all along, and it's really not going to jive. So I think you have to have it cut right there. Even though, as a reader, I was like, well, does she actually like her? You know, like, even though everything in her head says she doesn't, is she going to rethink that? So I think it has to end there. Otherwise, the rest is going to just amplify all the problems that we make note of.
I would semi-agree. I would have liked a little thing like maybe at the end of, and it was nice, or and I smiled, or, you know, or even her just her reacting, going, what the fuck?
Or
would
even
have been
just
nice.
like Pinkie kissed her, and it wasn't too bad. Like, that would have been enough.
Yeah.
But if you'd done that, then you wouldn't have the comedic, you know, one-liner at the end.
Pinkie kissed her, and it was weirdly nice. But still,
Pinkie
that came out of
kissed her.
nowhere.
Where did that come from? And then, but it was weirdly nice.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
There were ways and means, is what we're saying.
Still felt a little sudden, but I understand why the author did why they did that. But in the end, they solved a problem that they created.
Yep.
Maybe
okay, all right, to be fair, I guess technically all literature is solving a problem the author creates. But you know what I mean.
We get what
Point.
we mean.
Yeah. I wonder if they had a prompt.
Yeah, the Charlie Sheen interview.
Interesting question.
No, what I mean is, well, I've been trying to get back into writing, and so I keep looking up random prompts, and anyone that sort of clicks with me, I use that to write. And sometimes it is simple as end your story with the line. It could have been.
Oh yeah.
So that's what makes me think maybe they wrote it with a prompt. Not a bad thing. It's a great way to get your brain ticking of how you can work things in to end up that way. But yeah, that's a possibility.
That reminds me of the Dave Chappelle special where he talks about how he comes up with the punchlines and then he creates the joke.
How do you even do that?
What? How do you do that?
Well, you'd have to watch the Netflix special because I refuse to repeat the punchline that he had. And I don't actually remember the joke, but it ended up being funny.
Okay, fair enough.
Well, I think we've thoroughly covered what about the ending, which means that we're on to final thoughts and nominally spinning the wheel because it's definitely going to be Nomad picking the next one. So, final thoughts then about this story. And we'll go with Clever to begin with.
Titty sprinkles.
What?
That's not a final thought.
Fine. It's a fic. It delivers on what it says it's going to deliver on. We went on at length about what worked and what didn't. I guess if you're a cultural significance hound and you want to see where the Winningverse all started, go watch the Charlie Sheen interview and then maybe read this. But don't compare the two because one might be better than the other. But I do want to say that being said, I applaud all authors that put their work out there. It's hard work and it's difficult, and just because early attempts maybe not as shining as later attempts, that's not a reason to not read an author or to not continue to follow an author. So if the author's listening, I just want to say, there's obvious examples in this fic that show that there's lots of potential, and it seems from the impact on the fandom that a stride was found, and I look forward to reading something that's a little later on and in that stride. So that's my final thought on that. Titty sprinkles.
Okay.
Midnight, what do you reckon?
I echo some of all of that what Clever said. It has potential, possibly. It just needs quite a lot of polish. But the fact that it influenced so much more further down the line, it is a credit that people saw something in this, and I think we do as well. So, yeah. It was interesting to read, even if my head hurt afterwards, but that I've read some things that are
We've
terrible.
all read worse.
We've all read worse, and this one is not bad. It just needs some polish and work.
Nomad, what do you reckon?
If you're in the mood for wacky, lovey-dovey shenanigans, it fits right in. But whoops, not my cup of tea. But it wasn't that terrible. We definitely read worse.
Neighrator?
It's a story that is culturally significant and, in particular as an early fandom fic that sort of defined all the fanon that was to come over the next decade. It is culturally significant from that perspective, but taken in a vacuum, looking at just the fic itself, it's kind of mid.
My final thoughts, I think it's worth a look, if only to see where Winningverse started. I've had a look at Chengar Qordath's page, and although the spin-offs and things kept going along after, the actual main timeline of Winningverse concluded in 2018, so the entire main timeline is finished if this makes you think you want to go and have a look. And Pinkie and Rainbow Dash do get a lot more characterization in those stories. So your mileage may vary on this one. It's made me interested enough to want to go and attempt the Winningverse, even though it's very long. So I'll say that for it. It made me interested in its more famous sequel. Right, which does lead us on to picking the next fic. And I've left it until this point in the podcast to say, the sharp-eyed amongst your sharp-eared may have noticed that this was not the story we said was going to be the next podcast. We did, in fact, record the entire podcast for the previous story. And then I made the decision to discard it, as said earlier, for reasons that we're not going to go into. We did discover some stuff that made us all uncomfortable posting that particular podcast. Therefore, even though Nomad nominally picked last time, she's going to pick this time because she never really got her choice. So, Nomad, what story are we looking at next time?
This time is shorter than the previous thing that I found, and the author is actually good. So, it will be An Unemployable Cutie Mark Anonymous by the Drider Pony.
Right, so next time we'll be looking at Unemployable Cutie Marks Anonymous by the Drider Pony. With that, it's goodbye from me, goodbye from Neighrator.
Good night, everybody.
Good night from Nomad Flicker.
Bye!
Good night from Midnight 29.
Bye-bye!
And good night from Clever Hooves.
Good night.
No titty sprinkles, I am surprised.
I wanted to fake you out on that one.
Okay.
Yeah. But you didn't tell us all to fuck off, everyone.
Fuck off, titty
so
sprinkles. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.
Bye! Bye!
And we're done.
Couldn't let you not tell us to fuck off, because
I love that that's become the byword of this podcast, is me telling people to fuck off.
Well, you don't, yeah. It wouldn't be right.